Anybody need some cards? Got two big cards and one little card. Anybody need a card? Anybody else? All right, let's look at the little card. And we've been quite a while on that last prophecy at the bottom, the prophecy that must be fulfilled on the day of the rapture. And we've been just trying to think through each term in Daniel 9:27. On your card, I've got a summary. The 10 kings shall confirm a covenant with many Israel for 1 week or 7 years that involves sacrifice and offering. So if you would, let's turn to Daniel 9 and look at this verse a little more closely. Daniel 9:27. All right, let me read the whole verse. The verse is loaded, and we're just trying to go step at a time. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. All right, so what we've done is, or what I've done is tried to show that even though it's translated he, the context tells us that the translation should be they, because those that suggest that this is one man that makes this covenant have missed the fact, a couple of things. One is the pronoun is a collective pronoun, could be translated he or they. Should determine it in context. The previous context would lead us to believe that it's they. Also, he, why did we say that he won't work?
Because they make a covenant with the kings.
Well, some suggest that this is the beast or the world ruler.
He won't be on the scene by this time.
He's not on the scene. How long is it until he's on the scene?
200 days.
220.
Yeah, 220 days. He's not even on the scene, so it doesn't fit. Daniel told us that in the previous chapter, that he doesn't rise to power till 220 days in. And we took some time last week. We looked at the verses that talk about the 10 kings in earlier chapters in Daniel as well as in Revelation. Then we spent some time last week identifying him as from where, who, what race, what
The Assyrian.
the Assyrian. What modern day country would that be?
Iraq, northern Iraq.
Yeah, northern Iraq is where the Assyrians are centralized today. And it's called the king of the north, which in Daniel refers to Assyria. So there's consistent terminology to tell us that he's going to come out of northern Iraq, which on your map of the old Roman Empire is all the way to, it's the most eastern country, Iraq, but it's within the boundaries of the old Roman Empire, and he had to come out of those boundaries because he is, the 10 kings come out of these boundaries, and this ruler comes out of these boundaries, so it fits. All right, then we were in the midst of trying to identify who the Antichrist is. And oftentimes the ruler is referred to as the Antichrist. And I was suggesting last week that the term Antichrist is reserved for the false prophet. The beast is never referred to as the Antichrist, but the false prophet is. I was in the midst of trying to show that, so that's where I want to pick it up today. Let's turn to Revelation 16. Revelation 16. And I saw verse 13. Would you like to know the verse? 16:13. I saw three unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Okay, here we have three persons spoken of: the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. These are the three villains, if I could use that term, that arise during the tribulation. We didn't look it up, but have you ever heard, who is the dragon?
Satan.
Satan. Satan is the dragon. The beast is the ruler, and the false prophet is the prophet that rises up and does miracles in support of the beast. Get people's attention
To worship.
to worship the beast. But I want you to see the terminology here is dragon, beast, false prophet. Turn over to chapter 19. And we'll look at verse 20. 19, 20. All right. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in the presence by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worship his image. So there you have dragon, or you have beast and false prophet in the same passage once again. Chapter 20, verse 10. 20, verse 10. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and false prophet are. So there you see the three again. Except this time the devil is called the devil, and then the beast and the false prophet. This is the terminology we find in Revelation. And where do we? I said this last week. Where do we find the term Antichrist in the book of Revelation?
No.
It's not there. The term Antichrist is not found in the book of Revelation. What book is it found in?
1 John.
Yeah, 1 John. So I'd like to go, with that as a background, I want you to see that we have the three personages are the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. The devil, the ruler, and the false prophet who does miracles in support of the ruler. The only time we find the term Antichrist is in 1 John, so let's turn to 1 John. We looked at it last week. I think I should have gone in this direction to make it a little clearer. 1 John chapter 4. I guess we can go straight to verse 3. Every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this Okay, wait a minute. No, I need to start in verse 1. Let me start at verse 1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many, what?
False prophets.
False prophets. Don't forget that terminology. He's talking about false prophets here in this context. Many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this, you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of whom?
The Antichrist.
The Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. So he's talking about false prophets here in this context. And he says these false prophets are in the spirit of the Antichrist. So which of the three personages should we think that Antichrist refers to?
False prophet.
False prophets, because of the context here, as he brings up the term. And by Antichrist, he's talking about the future, a future personage. It says, the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard, was coming and is now already in the world. So, the Antichrist is coming, he's future, but his spirit is already in the world. Go back to chapter 2, verse 18. Chapter 2, 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. Little children, it is the last hour, and you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, future. Even now, many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it's the last hour. So what he's saying is, based on what we saw in chapter 4, when he talks about false prophets, he brings up the Antichrist. Here he's saying the Antichrist is coming, he's future, he's a special false prophet who's not here yet, but the spirit of the Antichrist, or false prophets, is already in the world. So that's why I'm suggesting that the term Antichrist is used by John only, and he uses that term to refer to the false prophet. Question about that? Okay. That's where we left off. I want to finish that. Now I'll go back to Daniel chapter 9 again. And we'll look at verse 27. I'm going to start from the beginning. He shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, that in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. Or they shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. Who's going to? Okay, just so we're on the same page. What do you have to have sacrifice and offering?
Temple.
Temple. So there'll be a temple rebuilt, and by the middle of the 7 years, there will be sacrifice and offerings going on in the temple. But then they shall bring an end to sacrifice and offerings. So we looked this up last. Who would the they be?
The 10 kings.
The
Right?
10 kings. They're going to put a stop to it. Notice the next thing. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. Notice the term abomination and desolate, or desolation. Here it's referring to one person who arises, or when is this that he will,
Mid-trib.
in the middle of the tribulation. And this isn't explained right here, but Jesus talked about it. Turn to Matthew 24. And we're gonna look at verses 15 and 16. Jesus said, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, and then Matthew says, whoever reads, let him understand. Okay? He's saying, pay attention, understand what Jesus just said about what Daniel said about this abomination of desolation. Verse 16, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and so forth. So what clues do we have here about what this abomination of desolation is?
He'll claim to be God and he'll accept worship.
Yeah. Where do you get that? From the verse. You're right. But what clues do you have in the verse?
Abomination of desolation.
Yeah. Where's it going to happen?
Temple.
Standing in the holy place, the temple,
Where do you get temple?
holy place.
Okay. Holy place. So he's going to stand in the holy place or in the temple, and he's going to do something that Jesus calls an abomination of desolation, which is what the terms that Daniel used in Daniel 9:27. Jesus says that you could read about, Daniel referred to it. All right, there's more detail about this given by Paul in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, so let's turn there. Second Thessalonians chapter 2, we're going to look at, start with verses 3 and 4. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So there we have a clear statement of what the abomination of desolation is. This beast will actually go into the temple and declare himself to be God and to be worshipped as God. And he does that in the temple of God. Says, no, I'm God, worship me. That's an abomination of desolation. And let's see, down in verse 9, he talks a little bit more. He says, the coming of the lawless one is in according to the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. Okay, any questions or comments about the abomination of desolation?
I understand how it's an abomination, but I don't understand what the word desolation means.
It means it'll cause the faithful Jews to flee Jerusalem into the mountains when they see what happened. I think desolation would mean that they leave Jerusalem and they flee to safety,
Yeah,
I think.
so they're having to leave things in, what's desolation mean? What's the word?
Separation.
Somebody look it up? Are you guessing or?
Laid waste.
Laid waste, yeah, I like that.
Anybody look it up on their phone?
A state of complete emptiness or destruction.
Emptiness or destruction? Yeah. So, yeah,
So there is some historical parallel there that the temple was desolated by Antiochus back in 164 BC or something,
yeah,
back in there,
Mhm.
where he, Antiochus Epiphanes, 8th king of Syria, brother of Cleopatra. But he marched into the temple. He made the Torah reading punishable by death, slaughtered a sow on the altar, erected an idol to Zeus in the Holy of Holies, which in turn incited the Maccabean revolt. That eventually started the rededicating of the temple in 165 BC, which is now commemorated by the Israeli holiday Hanukkah. So there's historical precedent there.
yeah, there was a preview, so to
So-
speak.
So that desolation, he desolated the Holy of Holies by sacrificing a sow in that.
Yeah,
Maybe that
yeah,
gives some perspective.
I guess so.
So is it possible he declares himself to be God and then does physically do some destruction there in the temple of some sort? Just to prove who he is and has the power.
Could be.
I thought it was just to show the destruction, or the made ways for the destruction of what is actually right, which is God is in control and God is God and this guy is not. It's just terminology that God chooses to use to express that he's completely counter to God himself, which is complete destruction, waste of everything.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not going to destroy the temple or tear the temple
well,
down.
yeah, well, he's not gonna destroy the temple as a whole, but he will, put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. Maybe he'll destroy the altar upon which the sacrifices were made to God. It's a good question, as far as exactly what the desolation is.
Jesus, when he comes back, comes up and goes into the temple, doesn't he?
Yes,
So
it's,
Temple has got to be there.
the building is
What greater conquest than to move the things that represent God in the temple and then to claim the temple as his own?
yeah,
Right.
right,
That's about the best it gets.
yeah.
He's trying to set himself up with the Trinity.
Well, it's a satanic trinity. Satan, the beast, and the false prophet. Yeah. Let's get a little more information. Let's turn to Revelation 13. All right, we'll start at verse 3. Revelation 13, start at verse 3. I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So there's a little more background on his position from this midpoint on. Any comments about that? I mean, I just thought I'd read it and just see if you had any comments.
The all inhabitants of the earth is kind of disconcerting. So is this after Jesus brings us to heaven? I mean,
Yeah.
and who is left?
This is at the midpoint of tribulation. We are taken before the tribulation in the rapture. But there will be many, many people that will believe in Jesus during the tribulation. But it won't be us. If we believed in this age, we're going to be taken in the rapture. Won't be in the tribulation.
Yeah, it's only those who have not believed, because their name's not in the book of life.
Yeah. What's going to happen to those who have believed during the tribulation?
Well, if they die, they will go to heaven.
If they die, they go to heaven to be with Jesus, right?
A lot of them will be martyred.
A lot of them will be martyred. It'd be a tough time for believers because of persecution by the beast.
So in this chapter, there are two beasts that are mentioned. This first one comes out of the sea. And in verse 11 of the same chapter, there's another beast that comes up. Who's that?
The same beast, I think.
Well, the two beasts, the first beast is the king or the ruler. Second beast is the false prophet.
I just, they use, translation uses the same term
Yeah,
for both, so like,
called the second beast. There's the two beasts. Yeah. So that's another terminology for the false prophet. Yeah.
yeah, I just want to clarify it.
Bob, to me, this is a description of abomination of desecration right here.
Yeah.
What he's doing, blasphemy, you know, he'll be killing Christians. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there is no other description than complete abomination, desecration against God, right there.
Yeah. In verse 6, he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven or in the sky, or the first heaven, above the atmosphere. So, what is, will there be, I don't know how to ask this question. Will people during tribulation believe in God?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, probably all of them.
Yeah.
They're gonna be able to see him.
Everybody on the, there won't be any atheists during the, I don't think there'll be any atheists during the
You
tribulation.
believe in one God or the other at that time.
Exactly. Well, they're gonna believe,
They will be convinced just as we are.
yes. Everybody on earth will be convinced that there are two gods,
Yes.
one of the sky and one of the earth. Right? The God of the sky is our God. Who's the God of the earth?
See,
Okay, Satan. And who's his man?
the beast.
The beast. So everybody on earth gonna know or be convinced that both of these gods exist. There won't be any atheists. And I don't think there'll be any other religions. There'll only be, two religions, so to speak. Those that believe in the true God of heaven or the sky, and those that believe in the beast, and Satan, and the beast and the false prophet.
Somebody sits on the fence
Huh?
Nobody sits on the fence. You
I don't
come
think
down
so.
right side of the fence.
No,
And we certainly know that, those that take the mark,
Right.
because those are definitely the ones that fall off on Satan's side
right.
and worship him.
Yeah.
What point during the tribulation does the mark of the beast begin?
But after the midpoint,
After the midpoint?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the false prophet is allowed through the power of Satan to do all these miracles, so the people are gonna say, well, I'm looking up there, I don't see much, but this guy's doing some miracles.
Yeah.
Which is gonna enhance his,
Well, the two witnesses have been killed, and so they're thinking that
see
Power
that?
was here with this bunch, cause they
Yeah.
took out this guy's men, gone in the temple, he's done all these things.
Yeah.
Waging war against all these believers, killing them left and right, so they're all gonna go. That's the winning team, and I'm getting on that one.
right.
Well, and on top of that, they're also a big struggle even to get food and things like that. If you don't take the mark of the beast, it's almost impossible to do business
Exist, yeah.
that we would do. So I'm like, I better take this route, I guess, because it's the only way I see to survive.
Right.
Nobody will accept it.
Unless you know the truth.
That implies that no one will be willing to accept the mark.
Oh, no, probably, oh, well, the majority of people will take the mark in order to buy and sell.
Right.
So,
But, I don't, born-again believers will not take the mark of the beast. So anybody that takes the mark of the beast,
They're done for.
yeah. But it'd be because they won't believe in Jesus. But those that do believe, God will, help them to not take the mark, seems to me. Of course, that's a whole lot more study than what we're getting into here, this morning. In verse, 6, it says, he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God. To blaspheme means to speak evil against. So what evil is he speaking against God? To the world. What's he saying about God?
What he's doing, what he's done to you, look what's going on.
What has God done?
Caused all this famine and.
Yeah.
all these plagues
Drought.
and all-
Causing all the problems.
Yeah, God's brought all the plagues down on the earth. And how did people know that these plagues are from God?
Two witnesses told them
Yeah, the
to.
two witnesses. Two witnesses are making it evident that God is getting your attention through these plagues. Better turn to Him. So that's why the beast is going to, in essence, say, he's a bad God. He's proven it through all these plagues of the tribulation. And I'm a good God. I can give you
Miracles.
what you need. I'll take care of you. You can, if you take my mark, you can buy and sell. But if you don't, then you won't have my help and you're exposed to him. I mean, it's gonna be a very overt
The great deceiver.
battle between, verbal battle on his part against,
so if you
God.
refuse the mark and die, you're a martyr.
yeah, well, yes, right.
He's gonna also say that, he took the people you loved. All the believers are gone. And these people are he's gonna turn that to be a bad thing that God did.
Well, for some people, that might be a thing that bothers them, yes.
We do
He's
know
gonna
that
say,
there's
I'm
gonna
from
be
the
a lot of
government and
people
I'm here to
believe,
help you.
Excuse me, that's about right. Who said something?
We do know there's gonna be millions of people that do believe, especially starting with 144,000.
Right.
So it's
The
gonna
greatest
be,
revival of all time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who shall bow?
And I like to always bring up what Bill brought up, that Well, there are gonna be a lot of people saved during the first half, but a whole lot of people saved during the second half. Yep. Okay, yeah.
Back in, I wanna revisit something. Back in, Matthew 15, 24:15, where it talks about the abomination of desolation. The wording is, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the temple, could the abomination of desolation be just a description of the beast? He's just devoid of anything other than he is an abomination and he is desolation?
Well, he's abomination, desolation personified,
Yeah,
but his actions are an abomination of desolation
I
as
know
well.
he's gonna be doing all those things, but it says, when you see him standing,
Yeah, I think Jesus is personifying him in that verse, yes. He's the abomination of desolation personified.
yeah.
But what he does is an abomination of desolation, so it's who he is and what he does. I see it that way,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's turn to Revelation 19, because we need to see how this ends. You already know, but let's look at it. We'll start in verse 11 and 12. Now I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no one knew except himself. Who's that?
Jesus.
When is this?
When he comes back to the earth.
At the very end of the tribulation. This is Jesus coming back to the earth. And then skip ahead to verse 19. I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. So what's the beast going to do?
Make war against Christ.
Yeah, literal physical war. There's going to be armies gathered. He knows Jesus is coming, and he thinks he's deceived himself into thinking that he can actually kill Jesus, defeat Jesus, so that he can continue to rule the earth. But in verse 20, then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. All right? So that's how it ends. Any questions about that?
His army, when he comes, he's gonna bring an army with him. He's gonna come out of the cloud. And when we went to meet him in the air, we would be with him forever. Are we coming back to be part of his army, or is it just gonna be angels in his army?
No, we're coming back with him.
We're gonna be part of the
All
army.
the saints.
Yeah, and Zechariah says, behold, the Lord comes and all the saints with him, or with you. So we're coming back with him.
Are we gonna take part in the smackdown?
Yeah, because you're gonna be the guy grabbing the beast and putting him over in the brimstone.
I'm ready.
That's what he said.
I'm ready.
I don't think so. I think,
Well, read the next verse.
which one?
The last couple.
Verse 21.
21, yeah.
The rest were killed with the sword which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse. All the birds were filled with their flesh. It seems to me that Jesus does all the fighting, but that's It's a little bit debatable. I'd have to go back and look up verses. I don't think we're gonna fight. I think
We'll be present.
we're gonna be there, but I don't think, he does the fighting. It seems,
Words, he seems to master.
maybe somebody knows the verse that says that. I think there's a passage that says that, but I'm not prepared to present it.
It's to Christ is the glory, not to us.
Right,
We don't defeat him, he does.
right.
Well, Psalm 2 says that the Lord is gonna laugh, have them in derision. Then he'll speak to them in his wrath and vex them in his sore displeasure.
That begins 1,000-year reign, doesn't it?
Well, there's gonna be 75 days after his return for judgments. The judgment of the sheep and the goats and the judgment seat of Christ in that 75-day period, and then the millennium starts. So, I hope that answers the question. Then there'll be 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about what we've looked at today? I just thought I'd want to finish that out. Okay. Hope you all have a great Christmas, and see you next week. Let's pray. Thank you, Father.